On November 21, 2016, in the safety and sanctity of her home, she was shot and killed by a gunshot wound to the back of her head, right behind her left ear, when this man crept into her backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning under cover of darkness, dressed in all black from head to toe. Black jacket, black hoodie, black sweatpants, black gloves, gun, black shoes, taped shoes, and discharged a firearm into her house not once but twice, both with a trajectory intended and designed to kill Emma Walker. And so when you think about that sanctity of home, Mark Walker, her father, who slept on the other side of the house, and Jill Walker, will never sleep so safely again. They're going to tell you that they don't sleep through the night anymore, nor her brother Evan Walker, because of what he did. This is Emma Jane Walker. She was 16 years old when she died. She was a student at Central High School. Some are going to say one of the more popular kids in school. Not the most popular girl in school. She was a cheerleader, an A student, somebody very gregarious. But Emma Walker was strong-willed too. She was a girl who had an opinion. And when it came to her boyfriend, who she met in high school, this man, Riley Gaul, she engaged in conflict with her parents. And you're going to hear, and the evidence is going to show that Riley Gaul was a star football player at Central High School, a wide receiver, a tremendously gifted athlete. You're going to hear that Riley Gaul ran a 4.49 40-yard dash. And to give you some perspective on that, Alvin Kamara, the standout for University of Tennessee and the New Orleans Saints running back, ran at the NFL Combine at 4.57. Faster than Alvin Kamara. Tremendous athlete. Baseball, basketball, football, wide receiver. 2 years her elder, though. And that's a pretty big deal in high school. When Emma comes into high school, she starts dating the football star Riley Gaul, and she's involved. Riley Gaul eventually goes on to Maryville College to play football. And that athleticism he used the very night that he killed her. That speed that he had, that 4.49 speed, and the athleticism to jump, he used well that night. But Emma, on paper, everything looked great. She's the cheerleader, he's the football star. They're in a relationship, but the relationship was toxic. You're going to hear that from her mother, that she eventually, at the beginning, that she thought the relationship was healthy, but then there were things that happened and occurred. She's going to tell you about that got her to the point where she couldn't have Emma in a relationship with him anymore. Emma bowed. She would tell her mother she loved him, and she would resist. And they had to put sanctions on her, eventually leading up to the fall where he's out at Maryville College because she was engaging in behavior that the parents knew was not appropriate. I'm going to let her tell you about that. But nonetheless, they put sanctions on her and tried to bridle, and you're going to hear, to stop her from interacting with this relationship that she believed, that the parents believed was not beneficial to their child. And I'll remind you, each time when you hear something that Emma said, she's a child. When you see these tweets and you see the text messages between the adult, the college kid, and the child, you're reminded that she's a child. And started her relationship with him when she was 14. And yes, that relationship had progressed to interaction sexually, and that was part of the problem. Jill and Mark didn't think that was appropriate. And they tried to put an end to it. And so you're going to hear in October of 2016, they started putting sanctions on Emma, requiring her to be eventually grounding on October 30th when they find, when the police call them and say, hey, your 16-year-old daughter is in a car with 18-year-old male here, can you come pick her up? It's after midnight. And they have to go, that's it. Family is grounded. So from October 30th through November 21, the day she dies, she's grounded up until that Friday night. And what we're talking about is the weekend before Thanksgiving. All of the events we're going to talk about happen in a 5-day period from Friday through Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The Friday before Black Friday, 1 week exactly. That's going to be November the 18th of 2016. And you're going to hear about events that occur and start on that Friday, that Saturday. She dies late Sunday night going into the early morning hours at 3 a.m. Monday morning, culminating his arrest on Tuesday the 22nd. And at home, the Walkers are going to tell you, is in a kind of a cozy little area of North Knoxville called Sturkey Hills. You see the types of homes there. Her father's a planter estimator at Y12. Her mother's a school teacher. And kept her warm and safe and dry in that home until that night. This represents, you can see the red dot, Cardindale Drive. That's in Sturkey Hills subdivision. And we mentioned a little bit in voir dire that the other areas of that are involved, there's other houses here, they're pinned with the yellow markers. And those are areas where he lived with his grandparents, where his stepfather lived, stepdaughter on Plummer, and where his friend Noah lived on Longcrest. And those addresses will be pivotal, but they're all kind of clustered in the same area. And so the offense, and we talked about the distance between the places, are going to be about 3 to 4 miles between these pins. There's one off to the right at Tazewell Pike. That's what you hear about what happened on Friday night. Friday night, November the 18th, Emma, really all the things that happened started in early November. The pressure, obviously, from her parents was mounting on her. You're going to see that in the text messages that she was attempting to break things off with him, but she loved him, and she would express that to him. And she would say, I can't be with you anymore. I can't take it. My life is miserable. She's grounded. She can't do anything. She's a cheerleader, a social person, wants to be out, wants to be with her friends. Her parents won't let her because she keeps violating their trust and their judgment about how the child should be raised. And she doesn't get it. And he doesn't get it. Why don't you just let us be happy? But all those things culminate from the beginning of November until about November 13th, when Emma finally starts getting it and finally starts saying, okay, I'm done. We can't be together anymore. And he's saying things like, well, I'm going to kill myself. And he does try. Efforts to control, to manipulate, and to possess her. They start ramping up. And in that week before she dies, from November 13th, November 14th, is when he tells her he's going to take his life, trying to get that attention from her, trying to seek that from her, and she keeps him at bay. Up until Friday the 18th. On that Friday the 18th, Emma had been grounded at this point from October 30th to November 18th. It's the first time and Jill's going to tell you things were starting to get better. She's coming out of the living room and talking to us. She's watching TV with us. She's being part of the family. Jill is going to tell you things that she's seeing a change in her daughter, that she really thinks she is pushing him away. Emma describes it to her friends as, I can't rip it off like a Band-Aid immediately. I can't break up with a cold like that. I'm going to do it over time. And that she begins that in November, but by November 13th is when she's really putting the pressure that she wants to end this relationship with him, and he can't take it. He can't take it. And on November 18th, Emma finally gets permission to go out. She's going to go to a friend of hers house. You're going to hear from the folks. Barry Seaton, lives on Tazewell Pike, the one address off Tazewell, with her friend Sarah Seaton. The Central High School football team played Fulton in a playoff game and beat Fulton that year, that Friday night. Emma cheered during the game, and she asked her mother, can I go to Sarah's house for a sleepover? That's something she'd done many times before. The Seatons have a good, clean, fun atmosphere where they do bonfires, the kids come, they gather and watch TV and just celebrate life. And Jill felt there had been a significant amount of time, at least 21 days, from October 30th or to the 18th, rather 18 days, and felt like it was time to let Emma go out and gain some trust that he wasn't going to come around. And so on the 18th, at the Seaton residence, Emma gathers with her friends there. There's probably 10 friends, and she starts getting text messages from an anonymous person. And I'm going to call Friday night the kidnapping incident. I'm going to call Saturday the man in black incident. And obviously Sunday night is the murder. But the kidnapping incident begins with Emma receiving text from a bizarre text from a number that she doesn't know. An anonymous number from the system that says, from a 251 area code, go to your car with your keys, go alone. One part of the loan wasn't clear. A person trying to get her to come out alone. I don't want to hurt a loved one. I've got someone you love. If you don't comply, I'll hurt them. If you tell anyone, I'll hurt them still. And this goes on. Trying to get her, trying to get her to come outside through this anonymous app because he's been blocked. His phone couldn't connect to her. She had blocked him. And you're going to hear that Emma and the friend go outside, and who do they see down in the ditch in front of Tazewell Pike but this guy, Riley Gaul, lying in the ditch. And so she goes back inside, upset, crying, scared. Why is Riley Gaul over on Tazewell Pike lying in a ditch? And why am I getting texts from this number as if they've kidnapped him? And the texts continue to go on, saying they're going to hurt him if you don't come out, and etc. And so Emma does go outside and confronts him with a group of kids and says, what are you doing here? And he's holding his head, saying, I've been kidnapped. These kidnappers are going to hurt me. I've been kidnapped. And Emma says, no, you haven't. What are you talking about? And folks, he continued this kidnapping story all the way up until he was questioned by the police. He even told the police he was kidnapped. But you're going to find out it's all a hoax. That this information, these text messages were coming from an anonymous app called Phoner, made by a company called Appsverse in California. And the FBI agent's going to tell you that when he was arrested and his phone was gone through, one of the log entries, he had deleted the app, of course, where he created these phony messages. But the FBI agent's going to say, we saw the entry where he bought the app on that very day, that Friday. And so he's creating this fear in her. She goes back inside, her friends are going to say she's weeping, she's upset, she's afraid. And what's he trying to do? Put fear in her. To talk to her? Yeah, that's what Jodie Foster's stalker does. Well, I just want to talk to Jodie. Tell her I love her with some bizarre event like this.
No, I'll object to references to matters outside of this particular case.
Very well. Go ahead. And so you're going to hear this bizarre kidnapping incident that he continues even through talking to the police. I got kidnapped on Friday night. And you're going to hear that the reason he does that during his statement to the police is to create some diversion that somebody else did this, to escape responsibility for this. Because that's what he's continued to do. And that's what he did yesterday when he stood up here and pled guilty to shooting into an occupied dwelling. Yeah, we did that. We didn't kill her. Didn't plead guilty to that. Didn't plead guilty to hiding the gun. He's tried to absolve himself of that responsibility from the beginning. Very next morning, after everybody settles down, you're going to hear from the friends that Emma was afraid, wanted to be escorted to her car, those types of things. She was in fear. She didn't know what he was capable of, but Emma also was protective of him still. She would tell her mother one thing and her friends that didn't like him another thing, but she knew. And you're going to hear about that. And another interesting part of that, why and you will know, the proof will show that this was a bogus kidnapping, even though he lied to the police and told them that he was kidnapped, is not only the app on his phone that created these phony messages, but also before he calls Emma with this phony number, the 251 area code, he calls his buddy Noah, texts his buddy Noah and says, "Hey, do you know who this is?" And Noah says, "No." "Am I in your contacts?" "No, you're not in my contacts." "Well, who is this?" And nothing else. So this app calls Noah first, tests to see if it works, and then calls Emma and does this whole kidnapping incident, saying that the kidnappers coincidentally dumped him on Tazewell Pike at a residence where Emma just happens to be. He says this, and he tells the police this. He's setting this up because he tells the police this when they're looking for a potential other suspect. Well, these guys did kidnap me to absolve himself of his conduct. And so, while he's there being kidnapped, rubbing his head, the confrontation, she's saying, "I'm getting a restraining order on you." She even texts his buddy Mac in Maryville saying, "Come get your crazy friend and keep him away from me." That Friday night. And then he calls his buddy Noah, and he tells his buddy Noah, "I've been kidnapped, I'm wandering down Tazewell Pike." But Noah says, "Oh, well, I'll come get you. GPS me." And as Noah gets in his car to go, here comes Riley in his own car. You're going to conclude another lie. In a clicker list of lies, you're just going to keep on clicking. Lie, lie, lie. And then that very next morning, you're going to hear on Saturday, November 19th, Emma did the sleepover there at Sarah Seed's house in Tazewell Pike. She had to be back with her mother to do volunteer work at the school. And so on Saturday morning, she went to Chick-fil-A. And about 10 o'clock that morning, she arrived back at her house. And her house was empty. Her dad and her brother were out hunting. It had just turned deer hunting season. And her mother was at school at this volunteer project that her mother was doing through the school. And so Emma was supposed to come home, get dressed, and come over to school. Well, when she arrives home at 10 a.m., there's a man in black walking through the neighborhood. Black sweatpants, black hoodie, black shoes, black gloves. And she sees the person and becomes in fear of that person. And that person comes to her door and starts banging on her door, ringing her doorbell, trying to get in her house. And Emma reacts by calling out to her friends. And she reacts in a way where she's going to tell, you're going to see the text messages, what her level of fear was. She thought, "I thought I was going to die. There's a guy in black walking through my neighborhood when I drove back to my house, and he came up to my house trying to get in my house." She's going to tell her friends that. And you're going to hear that, and this is a small videotape from a neighbor across the street, or rather down the street, named Jill Carney. You'll hear from Jill Carney. That her video camera is a motion sensing camera. It doesn't usually pick up people walking, because it doesn't create enough motion to turn the camera on. But nonetheless, there's a leaf you can see up in the upper left-hand corner that might be motivating this, but about 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a man in black walking up Colston Drive, and it disappears as the camera shuts off. And then you'll also see a figure running up the top of the screen right now, across and down Cardinville Drive. Those are a couple of minutes apart on Joe Carney's surveillance video. But more importantly, not only was a man in black captured on the video, but as she came home from Chick-fil-A, Emma was with her friend Haley McDonald, who was part of the incident the night before. Haley McDonald was part of the confrontation down at the road. You're going to hear from Haley. And Haley's going to tell you when they pulled into Sturkey, she sees Riley, truck clad in all black, walking through Sturkey up Colston onto Cardindale. And she knows it's Riley, even though he's got his hood pulled up tight, because she knows his person. She knows the way, she's going to say, I know the way he carries himself. I know how he walks. It was Riley. And so what did she do as a result of that? She texts him, what are you doing in Sturkey? Because she knows about the bizarre things that happened the night before. Now here he is now, dressed in all black, walking down Cardindale, where her friend Emma lives, and she lives. And Riley responds, and you're going to see his response, over the top. I'm not in Sturkey. I bet on my grandfather's life I'm not in Sturkey. You've got to believe me. Something to that effect. And Haley, being the investigator that she is, knew that Riley, when he'd sneak over to Emma's during the time when he was getting in conflicts with the parents, when he'd sneak over there, he'd park his car down at the pool. And this area, this way that this man in black is walking, which is Riley Gaul, is coming from the pool. And as she had to go to a babysitting job, she'd go down to the pool. And she's going to tell you that there was Riley Gaul's car sitting at the pool, despite his saying that he wasn't in Sturkey. So he was the man in black. And Emma's going to tell, and Haley's going to tell you that she recognized his car down at the pool. A little difficult to see. Well, a little difficult to see, but we will we'll have this exhibit in. You're going to be able to see in the lit up exhibit. Let me see if I can't. Haley's able to describe the stickers on the car and able to describe the fact that there are Nike boxes in the back hood of the car. All of those things corroborate and show when the defendant's car was searched the next day on the 21st. He's got Nike boxes up in the back seat. He's got the sticker where she said it was. It was Riley's car. Riley was the man in black, and that's corroborated by a second point that you're going to hear. When Riley Gaul was arrested for this offense on Tuesday, he has with him not only the murder weapon, which is conclusively linked, and the TBI is going to come in here and tell you that when a cartridge is ejected from a Glock pistol, a Glock is especially beautiful in terms of the markings it leaves on a shell casing. And that's what the TBI examiner gets excited about it. Not only does it have very distinct markings from the ejection, but also the firing pin has a very unique firing pin, and she's excited about that. And microscopically, this is the murder weapon. He's arrested with a murder weapon. He's arrested with a black hoodie. He's arrested with a black sweatpants. He's arrested with black shoes, with duct tape around the shoes, going under the arch and over where the flap is for the laces to gain that extra traction. He's arrested with latex gloves. He's arrested with garbage bags. The whole outfit that the man in black wore, you're going to hear. So Riley Gaul is his own kidnapper. Riley Gaul is his own man in black, frightening Emma, telling her friend she thinks she's going to die. And Emma even calls it because she thinks it. Hey, Riley, is it you? Is that you? And he says, no, what is it? I'll assist you. I'll help you. Tell me, what do I need to do? And he speeds right over, you're going to hear, and pulls into the house as a rescuer, wearing a t-shirt and shorts at this point, because he'd gone back to his car that was at the pool. And you're going to see in the trunk of that car is the black duct tape that you're going to see wrapped around the shoes that he gets arrested with. But he speeds back over to Anna's house as the rescuer. I'll rescue you. But at the same time, Joe Walker is thinking, this is taking too long for Emma. Something's going on here. And Joe Walker drives home from the school that she's working at, just a couple of minute drive. And she pulls up, and there's Riley standing in her driveway. The person who her husband had forbidden from coming over, that she had conflict with, and said, you're not allowed here. And she's like, go. Go. Emma's upset. She's crying, upset, and Riley goes. And so those events, the kidnapping, the man in black, those events that lead up to the homicide were intended, the proof will show, to harass her, to intimidate her. It's stalking. That's what he's doing. Whatever his efforts are for, to make her talk to him or to love him, it wasn't working. And it's stalking. And then going into Sunday night, Emma, of course, asked her parents for the first time. For the first time, she asked her parents, hey, can you set the alarm? Can you make sure the alarm is set here? And meanwhile, back that Friday, from the Friday that we had the kidnapping, the attempted kidnapping, another thing was happening at Maryville College. His grandfather had come to at Maryville College to trade out his vehicle to put new tires on his vehicle. And his grandfather is a carry concealed weapons permit holder who owns a Glock 9mm, who keeps it in a holster and keeps it under his seat for protection. And his grandfather is going to tell you, he's going to come in. It's going to be tough for a grandfather to come in and testify against his grandson, but he's going to. He understands that he's subject to subpoena, and he's going to come in here and he's going to tell you that when I went and I swapped the vehicle out, I went and got his tires. It took me a couple hours. About 1 o'clock Friday, I got back, and I went, and the first thing I reached for that gun, and there's the holster, no gun. And I panicked. I panicked because in his mind, Riley's in an emotional state right now. He knows that he knows there's issues with potential talking about suicide, and now the gun's missing. Riley, where's the gun? He says in text messages or in voice messages. He goes into panic mode. Can't find the gun, Riley. I don't know, Papa. I don't know where that is. You're going to see the text exchange with him. And Jim Walker is in panic mode. He calls Riley's mother and says, go look in his dorm room. She comes straight to Maryville. By 2:30, she's there searching his dorm room for the gun. It can't be found. End up finding it because he gets arrested with it, Papa's gun, the stolen weapon. He gets arrested with it on Tuesday night. But Papa searches for it, and they confront Riley, and multiple people confront Riley, and he continues to deny possessing the handgun. They search for it, they can't find it. And he denies it, but he had it Friday during the kidnapping argument. proof is going to show. He had it Saturday when he showed up at her house as the man in black. The proof is going to show because he's been missing that whole time. He gets arrested with it on Tuesday. But late Sunday night, things are really coming to a boil. The defendant had in the past, with these social media apps, you can block people and so that their messages don't come through. And Emma had done that, block, unblock, block, unblock, block, unblock, both ways. And on that Sunday night, Emma was home doing homework. You're going to hear that from Evan, that they had tussled a little bit over the laptop because he had homework, and Jill's going to say, I can't believe you both waited until Sunday night to do your homework. But nonetheless, Emma did homework that night, and she went to bed. But you're also going to hear that Riley had a friend at Maryville College named Max Siegel. And you're going to hear from Mac. And Mac is going to tell you that from time to time, Riley's battery would be dead on his phone. And he would use my phone to call whoever. Emma, he would use his phone sometimes. And that Sunday night, you're going to hear and a whole lot of work went into this map. This is a map of his cell tower locations on Sunday night, just before midnight, and approaching up all the way until 4:30 when he comes back to Maryville College. A lot of work went into this, and this was a map of opportunity to show you that he was actually in Knoxville and around the Carbondale address when the homicide occurred, but he kind of took that away when he stood up and said, I'm guilty, I did shoot your house. This isn't as important as it used to be, but nonetheless, it shows you that prior to midnight is in green, and post-midnight is in red. Gunshots are heard in the neighborhood about 3 a.m. In the green, prior to midnight, he's still in Knoxville. And you're going to hear testimony from his buddy Noah that on Sunday night, they're hanging out. Riley says he's got to go back to college to do homework for classes. And so you're going to see the first data point beyond midnight is he's back in Maryville already, and that's going to be at 13 minutes after midnight. So at 11:08, he's still in Knoxville. By 13 minutes after midnight, he's in Maryville. And you're going to see that he stays in Maryville at least until 12:30. And 12:30, 12:29 actually, he's on his way back. He's already up here close to, he's on Alcoa Highway, pinging up here closer to Knoxville. And it's important to know, when you look at the records, you're going to hear from Max Siegel, who's going to say, yeah, he came back to Maryville College that night, and he asked me to borrow his phone, or he asked to borrow my phone because he said his mother had his phone, yet you're going to see that his phone is pinging all the way to Maryville, and he's actually talking to people on his phone. You're going to hear from those people too. So Max Siegel, he made up a reason for Mac to hand him his phone, and he takes Mac's phone outside, and he starts to wear her out. First call, 14 minutes. She actually talks to him. He tells the police in that conversation she was cruel to him. But in the next, between 11:40, when he first starts calling her, that first 14-minute call, until about 12:09, the last call that Emma receives, and or text, there's about 64 different, either text, SMS, voice calls, missed calls, etc. 64. Back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And he's saying things like, in his text, Emma, I'm begging. 12:09, 39, I'm begging. 12:03, 47, please God, answer. 12:03, 50, please, I'm begging you. This is 3 hours before he kills her. 12:03, 57, I ain't hurt like this. 12:04, 01, please just talk to me. This is from Mac's phone to Emma's. 12:04, please. 12:04, please. 12:06, please. 12:06, don't do this, I can't. 12:06, please. And that's about 10 or 12 calls, and so there's a total of 64 communications and another 40 attempted phone calls. including the 14-minute one that connects to the first one. Well, we don't know what she said, but we have said it. But there's when the switch flipped right there, 12:06:28. End of communication. End of communication to Emma around 10 minutes after midnight, and he's on his way back to Knoxville. By 12:29, he's on his way back to Knoxville, and he makes a phone call. He does two things on this trip back after this text message barrage and voice barrage up from Mac's phone. He does two interesting things. Number one, he calls his buddy Noah, and he says, "Hey, can I come over?" And Noah says, "No, man, it's a school night." Noah's a nuclear engineering student at the University of Tennessee. He's just a school night, man. We're crashed. We're done. No. And he says, "Well, I got another question for you. Can you tell me how you get fingerprints off a gun?" And Noah says, "What? Why do you need to know that?" He says, "Oh, my roommate needs to know that. My roommate asked me, and I just figured if you knew how to get fingerprints off a gun, you could tell me." Well, you're going to hear from his roommate, Walker Stanley, who basically Alan Barrett had to get out of a tree stand in Georgia, owns 143 guns, and has cleaned and disassembled guns, and knows how to get a gun free from fingerprints because he's cleaned guns his whole life. Never did that. The defendant is calling Noah, saying, "How do I get prints off a gun?" Another interesting thing you're going to see is what he does is he texts his mama after midnight on his way up to Knoxville, in that brief period when he's coming back to Knoxville before he kills her, on his way to kill her, he texts his mama, "Hey, did Papa ever find his gun?" Leaving a trail. Mama says no. He says, "Oh, God, that's awful." He's got the gun all along. Stood up here and said he shot into the residence, right? Creating a trail of trying to get away with it. And so we get to the issue of intent, that this is a premeditated murder. We talked about this, as the proof is going to show, that it's a premeditated murder and it's a felony murder. We talked about the first count in the indictment and the seventh count in the indictment, the first count being the premeditated act, the seventh count being the commission of a child abuse. You've already admitted shooting into an occupied dwelling. If you know a child is there and a killing occurred, I'm going to submit to you that you will find out on the first witness. Jim Walker's going to say he's been in that house dozens of times. He knows the layout of the house, been in that bedroom. They had to ban him from the bedroom, had to keep him in the common areas because he kept going in the bedroom with her. But he knew where that child slept. And you're going to hear that in the first witness, that a killing occurred and a child was in that house that he's already admitted shooting in the dwelling. So count 7 should be easy breezy for you. Count 1, premeditated. Was this an intentional act? We already talked about this is in darkness. He had the black suit with him when he's arrested, armed with that stolen grandfather's gun, dressed in all black. He enters the backyard, fires the gun into the residence, calculated entrance. And I told you I'd show you that. And here's Emma. You can see she's got some emergency tabs on her stomach from the emergency crew that they pulled the covers down. But there she died in her sleep, in her bed. And if you think about the layout of the home, if we're standing in the street looking at the Walker residence, Emma's bedroom is in the far back left corner of the residence. So this back wall that we're looking at goes out to the backyard of the house, and where her head is goes to the side yard. It's the exact back corner of their home, all the way in the back, catty corner in the home. And that window right there that you see, the proof is going to show, is the only window in her room. And as you can see from that, Riley Gaul, and you're going to hear from Detective Merritt that he has said on occasion before that obviously he had snuck in that window before, snuck out it before. Also bragged about how he was able to leap the fence without basically even touching the fence, because he's an athlete. And you're going to see when the photographs of the scene and Emma Walker's death, that bed is exactly even in height with the bottom of the window. Right? You can see it in this photograph. And the end of the bed is exactly even with the sidebar of the window, meaning the vertical port of the window ends where the bed ends. And the horizontal ends at the height of the bed. So anybody who's been in that room and has been up in through that window would know that, right? Mark Walker has a completely fenced backyard, security fence. He had a dog. She's passed, but he had a full fence in the backyard here that he kept gated. And we're off now, as we look at it from the street, we're off now to the right, because that's the only gate to the residence. Emma's going to be all the way over on the other side of the yard. You're going to be penned in on Emma's side of the yard, but you enter it through this gate at 3 o'clock in the morning, dressed in black. Through that gate, we're coming around their deck, and you're now looking at Emma's bedroom window. Emma's bedroom window, the one window you just saw at the foot of her bed. As you can imagine, you can almost see where Emma is sleeping in there. And the proof is going to show that from 12:29, or marker number 3, 40 minutes after midnight, marker number 3, he's from marker 3 through marker 9, he's all in that area from 12:30 specifically up to 3:40. He's all in this area. Where was he? You know where he was at 3 o'clock. He was standing right there next to that window. And as you look at the house and the back of the house, you can imagine where Emma's bed is. And this is my crude attempt, and I apologize for this. This is a marker that I couldn't find a way to make it look better, but just imagining where the proof is going to show where her bed would be in relation to that, her bed in relation to the window. So if you're standing outside, you know where her bed is. And right at the bottom of that red arrow is the hole, the gunshot hole. That's where he shot her. Shot through that hole. And that's a trajectory, Rob, of how it came into the house, entering into the side of her skull just behind her left ear as she lay sleeping. Instantaneous death. That trajectory is slightly downwards and slightly towards the side yard, meaning as you look at it from this angle, it's slightly going that way towards the neighbor's house. And you'll see the photographs of that in more detail. But that was the kill shot. But he wasn't done. The photograph that you're seeing here Detective Merritt is going to tell you this is the backyard. Obviously, this is Mark's fence. This is a fence that looks like barnwood because it's been up so long.
It's not working.
Did it go off on it? This is a barnwood type. I'm saying barnwood only because it's grayed so much. You'll see that now. And Merritt's going to testify to that this barnwood is grayed. But before he noticed, there was a particular spot in this barnwood, and it's going to be, maybe if we can get the lights, Judge. That right there, you're going to see there and there. The Detective Barrett on the wood saw fresh scuff marks. We can get those lights in again. Sorry. Fresh scuff marks on the fence. And those fresh scuff marks on the fence were arguably his exit point when you see him the next time that he shot into the house. But interestingly also, you see where the shell casing landed. And those of you who have experience with firearms will know shell casings from a Glock. You're going to hear the proof from to the right, maybe to the back. And that's where it lands. Kind of being able to position where he was, right up next to their house at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so over the fence, we find now we're over onto the neighbor's side. Emma's head is going to be coming right at us as her bed is back in this back corner. And you're going to hear this air conditioner make quite a racket. It's pretty loud. You're going to hear the video, the crime scene video, and it's pretty loud. So you can understand why things may have been muffled sound-wise. The proof will show that. And you're going to see here also evidence marker 1 and evidence marker 2. Evidence marker 2 is going to be another spent shell casing. And evidence marker 1 is going to be a live round. And the TBI agent is going to tell you that this particular Glock that he was arrested with, Packwell's stolen Glock, that this particular Glock had a catch-release issue where sometimes when the gun was fired, the slide would rack back, and instead of chambering the next round, it would hold back on that catch and would hang there. And so it happened to her 1 out of 6 times. She testified at 6 times where she fired the gun and the slide came back but didn't position the next round in. So that would cause somebody who needed to fire again to do something to manipulate that slide. And there's a live round sitting there. And so the TBI examiner is going to tell you that that would have required them to pull the slide back to chamber another round, which may have caused a live round to go out. And so that live round seated right there. And this is going to show that, and you can see. Does it go to have a laser? This one doesn't have a battery. Okay. Well, you can see in the light between the first 2 pickets, and you're going to be able to count. And if you didn't count the first time, it's the 6th lap of siding up. He goes right in the same lap, 6th lap up, same height, and discharges around. And again, just taking that line drawn from where her bed is and where he stands, that's where her bed would be. And the arrow, you can see at the bottom of the arrow, I don't know if you can see it from where you're at, but there's a hole there where he discharges the firearm into the house the second time. That round, fortunately, hits a 2x4 inside the wall. You're going to hear from the forensic examiners who got that out. Hits a 2x4, but keeps a trajectory down through, goes through 2 slats in the headboard, and lodges in the pillow right above her head. I think it would have just crisscrossed right in her skull if it hadn't hit a 2x4. And the trajectory of that one is a crossing pattern from 2 different angles, shooting right at her head. And so he disappears into the night. And the next morning, Jill Walker wakes up, 6:15. It's going to be a good week. We got Thanksgiving coming up. It's a short week of school, probably an early release on Wednesday. A good week. Goes in to wake up Emma, grabs her foot at 6:15 a.m. and tries to shake her foot, and it's cold. And Jill's going to say she looks at Emma, and she realizes something is terribly wrong. She's blue, her lips are blue, her tongue is out. Looks like she's got vomitus or vomit all over the pillow. something terribly bad is wrong and Jill panics, as any mama would. And Evan is going to tell you that his mom was losing it, that his mom said check her pulse. Mark had already gone to work. He works at Y12 crazy hours. He gets up at, had been up that morning at about 4 o'clock. And he's going to tell you during the night he thought he heard sounds during the night that he went in and checked on his kids. And during the night he looked in, looked like Emma sleeping, looked like Evan sleeping, went back to bed. Jill Walker's going to say she didn't hear a thing. Evan Walker's going to say he didn't hear anything. Stealthy in the middle of the night. But Evan's going to tell you that his mom wanted him to check her pulse, and he did, and there was no pulse. She was cold. She'd been dead for hours. And so police converge, Alan Merritt arrives, the Knoxville Sheriff's Office arrives, and they start to process the scene. There's confusion about how she even died. You're going to see it in the crime scene photographs. It may be obvious to you. You're going to see some sheetrock dust right in the hole where on the pillow, right in the hole, and you'll see the hole. It'll be evident to you because you know she's been shot. But the police officers who originally arrived didn't know that, and they looked at it as it looked like her head to the side and she had vomited, when in fact it was her brains and blood. And so that there was confusion for some point. And people knew that something had happened to Emma, but people didn't know that she'd been shot. People thought maybe did she take pills, and so social media raged with that issue. Nobody knew that she'd been murdered. And that wouldn't come out for several hours because the Sheriff's Department and Alan Merritt was trying to keep it under wraps. Trying to keep people to let us investigate and let us figure out who would do this. And every person is going to say, Riley Gaul. Riley Gaul. And so their immediate attention turns to Riley Gaul. They find out who his friends are, Alex McCarty, Noah Bolton. Those are the buddies that he's with and is with. And they go and they interview Alex and Noah. And lo and behold, what does Alex tell them? Alex is going to come in and tell you, well, we've been worried about Riley because Friday night, first off, he came and told us this crazy story that he'd been kidnapped. And then Saturday night, I go out with him and he says, I got this from my grandpa so I can protect myself against these kidnappers. And he shows him a Glock. Saturday night. Noah Walton's interviewed and said, yeah, on Sunday night at 12:30, he called me and said, how do I get fingerprints off a gun? Yeah, so I'm worried he's got a gun. Alex told me he had a gun, he's got a gun. Riley doesn't know that. He doesn't know that Alex and Noah have talked to the police. And Alex and Noah will say, we talked to the police because we were afraid he was going to take his own life if he had the gun. We didn't know how she died. We didn't know she was murdered. And so, 10 o'clock at night on November 21, he's interviewed by the police, and you're going to hear that interview. During that interview, he admits that he and Emma had been broken up. He says about 2 weeks. He says that she was refusing to talk to him, that she was blocking him. He says that, and very interestingly though, the first time when this love of his life is referred to in the interview, you'll pay attention to when they ask him, do you know what we're here about? And he says, about that girl. And they said, that girl? That girl? What girl? That girl that died. Do you know her name? Emma. And during that interview, he's going to say Emma was cruel to him. During that conversation, he's going to admit that he went and used Max Siegel's phone to call her 64 times. And after the conversation, he knows that he made phone calls up to Noah. He knows he made the phone call about the fingerprints off a gun. So he's got to explain that, so he tells them, I had to go back to Knoxville at midnight to my grandparents' house to log myself off from my computer, my Maryville account. Well, Maryville College is going to be here, and they're going to tell you we have a Google-based account. You can log in anywhere, you log out anywhere. That's baloney. But that's the reason he tells the police that he had to come back to Knoxville after midnight. And the evidence is going to show he admitted that he asked him about the fingerprints on the gun. He admitted that, and he said, oh, my roommate asked me that. And as I told you before, Walker Stanley's going to tell you that's click, another lie. And so, who would have done this, Riley Gaul? And what does he offer up to the police? Not only does he really say that he'd been kidnapped right in, but he also says, hey, there was this man in black, you see, around the neighborhood, and I had to go save her. He's creating an excuse. He's trying to get out. Denies any knowledge of the gun or whereabouts, any involvement in the death. And in the interim, what Alan Merritt had to do during that interview, just before, from 10 o'clock to midnight, he had to reveal to him, hey, listen, Alex McCarty told us you had a gun Saturday night. He told us you had a gun. They confront him with that. I don't have a gun. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know why he'd make that up on me. He could insist that he never had this gun. And he says, well, no one told you, you called us about the prints. You called it, asking how to remove prints from a gun. Oh, my roommate asked me about that. I was just doing a favor for my roommate. You're going to hear, with regard to the investigation, not only Walker Stanley never say that, but the defendant Snapchats Walker Stanley the next morning after this and says, hey, do not talk to the police about this. And so you're going to hear from Alex McCarty. And Alex McCarty is going to tell you after the death of Emma Walker that he was concerned about his friend, and he reached out to him and said and asked him if he was all right, and said he'd meet him on Monday. This is Monday. She dies 3 a.m. Monday morning. She's discovered 6:15 a.m. By that evening, Alex McCarty is going to go over and comfort his friend. But his friend that he knew had a gun on Saturday night, but he doesn't know it's a homicide yet. He still thinks that Emma had died, maybe of an overdose. So Alex McCarty goes to the house, and one of the first things he says to him, he pulls up in the driveway, and he says, Riley, what about that gun? Because he's worried about him offing himself. And Riley tells him, oh, I gave that gun back to my grandpa. That was my grandpa's gun. I gave it back to him. And Alex is relieved. And not even 10 seconds, 60 seconds later, Riley's mother comes out asking about, telling them that the gun is still missing. And Alex looks at him and says, what? The gun is still missing, but he doesn't say anything in front of his mother. But Alex is worried. And so after the defendant is interviewed, and it's revealed to him that Alex has told the police that he has a gun. He gets out of that interview with Alan Merritt about midnight on the 21st. And at Tuesday, November 21st at 12:07, Alex, man, I need you to text me right now. Alex responds, what's up? Delete these texts after I send this next one to you, please. Okay, I got you. Why did you tell him about the gun? They think I shot her because of it. Please text me back. If you didn't do anything, you have nothing to hide, bro, and I figure you might use it to kill yourself after all this happened. I'm worried about you. Dude, why'd you tell me you were trying to get rid of the gun? And you lied and you said you already gave it back to your grandpa, and then your mom came outside and she said she couldn't find it anywhere. They didn't know I gave it back. They didn't know I gave it back. I didn't lie. Just, God, please promise me. Please promise me if any cop asks you any more questions, just tell him you're not willing to answer because you can't get in any trouble. Riley, and Alex says, but how would you throw the gun in the river if your grandpa has it? And why would you feel the need to even do that? Because of them accusing me of doing this. Just promise me I didn't fucking kill her. I would never hurt her, and I'm probably going to jail. But if you give them the gun and they can prove that you didn't use that gun, just please don't talk to them. I'm probably going to jail for something I didn't do. You're not going to jail if you're innocent, but the police have to rule everything out. Are you saying she was for sure shot? I didn't tell the cops anything they didn't straight up ask me about. I didn't give them any more information than they already had. Dude, I can talk to you in person later about it, but if I'm not in jail, just please don't talk to the cops anymore and delete these texts. Dude, just tell me what's going on. Did she get shot? Alex still doesn't know. Alex, I really can't talk about any of this without breaking down. Just promise you won't talk to them again. And so he begins the plan and the working to get rid of the murder weapon and throw the murder weapon in the Tennessee River. And so on November 22nd, he calls Alex again, and you'll see those texts. And Alex, he and Noah are going to throw away the gun in the Tennessee River because he can't be reasoned with that the gun can possibly exclude him. And the reason he can't be reasoned with is because he knows it's the murder weapon. And so he solicits them, Alex and Noah. Alex and Noah do the right thing. They call the police because they know it's sketchy. They know this kidnapping story, the man in black, and they know that this story about throwing the gun in the river. And they call Alan Merritt, James Hurst, and they say, hey, he's going to throw this gun in the river. And they come and they agree to be wired. And you're going to hear that videotape and see that videotape of what happened from the time Alex met them to the time where he was arrested, attempting at the Cherokee Bluffs to throw the gun into the river. And what you're going to see is they call police, and the defendant at this point gathers with Alex and Noah. This is all on videotape, and they go to his stepfather's house where he had hidden the gun in the basement of his stepfather's house. Seth Donalon had, and Seth is going to testify that he had a storage area that he kept unlocked that he keep the dogs in, and he had the clothes in there and odd furniture and whatnot, but it was open all the time. And that the two, Noah Walton and Alex McCarty, are going to tell you that he said, we got to go to Seth's house first to get the gun. They drive over to Seth's house, and when they get there, the defendant comes back, not with a gun, he comes back with a bag full of stuff. And they're like, what is that? And he says, oh, nothing, I just put the gun in the first thing I could put it in. But you've already heard what's in that bag: the black hoodie, the black pants, the black shoes with duct tape wrapped around them, latex gloves, the rubber long gloves, garbage bags. And he tells them, ding, another lie, oh, this is another bag. The sweatpants are tested by the TBI, and they come back and it's his DNA in the sweatpants. They're his clothes, not something he just picked up. It's the man in black suit that he used to scare Emma and probably to kill her. And so the contrast, after she dies, that night, very night, he tweets this. That's at 5 o'clock. It's 10 hours after he killed her. After he just admitted to that he shot at an occupied dwelling. That's my beautiful Emma. Rest easy, my sweetheart. 1 Corinthians 13:8. Be sure to remind God about our verse. Love you forever and always. and then a diatribe. You can see it, and you'll have that about their love and the things they used to do. And you compare and contrast that with the exhibit that's next to it, which is part of the reason why Jill Walker is going to say, I didn't want him around her because the way he was talking to her. Fuck you. I hate you. I hate everything about you. I hate how fake you are. Fuck your love. All of that kind of talk to her 16-year-old girl. That's why he wasn't around her. 1 Corinthians. Living every day through Emma Walker, he posts, he tweets. That's my beautiful Emma. Rest now, rest easy now, sweetheart. A person who can shoot into an occupied dwelling, deny that they have the gun, deny that they had anything to do with it, post things like this. And set up his own defense with kidnapping. The man in black, you need to look at this man in black, is a premeditated, cold-hearted killer. And at the conclusion of this case, I'm going to ask you to find him guilty on all counts. Thank you.